Hi, Rupert. I would like to ask you about the process of recognition of one's true nature. I understand
Say that again.
uh, the process of recognition of one's true nature. I understand that the process of realignment goes on forever, but I would like to ask you about the recognition itself. If is it like a discovery, like a one-off thing, or it can also be progressive?
Very occasionally it happens just once and for all. And most of us know stories of this kind, but for most people it happens in a series of incremental glimpses. For instance, the first recognition for most of us is, I am awareness. I thought I was a mixture of thoughts and feelings and sensations. I thought I was a body and a mind. But I realize I am that which is aware of them. I am not my thoughts, I am aware of my thoughts, etc. So this is, for many people, the first recognition. I am awareness. And that already liberates us from a great deal of the suffering that is inherent in the belief and feeling that we are a mixture of thoughts, feelings and sensations. But it is not a complete liberation of what we are. It is a partial liberation, and therefore it brings with it partial peace and happiness. So, having discovered I am awareness, awareness then abides as awareness. And this is what we were speaking of in the first part of this morning's meditation. What Rumi referred to as flow down and down and down in ever-widening rings of being. This sinking, awareness sinking deeper into itself, the mind sinking deeper into the heart. And as it does so, it is, in most cases, progressively relieved of its limitations. That's why Rumi referred to it as ever-widening rings of being. Our being gets wider and wider as it loses its limitations. And for most people, it goes in a series of steps, a series of recognitions. And then at some point there is this recognition that what I essentially am is inherently free. It is imperturbable and thus peace itself. It is fulfilled. There is no lack in it and thus happiness itself. And it is ever present. And this understanding, this feeling understanding that it is ever present puts an end to the fear of death. So there is what is in most cases a gradual unveiling of awareness. Until at some point there is this recognition. Now this recognition may be accompanied by a tremendous relief of tension in the body and in the mind, in which case it will be accompanied by extraordinary signs.
Yes.
But the recognition can also happen very quietly. So quietly that there are actually no signs in the body-mind to begin with. The signs become evident in time.
Yeah, somehow I have like a subtle expectation that something extraordinary must happen or is going to happen.
The extraordinary things that happen are nothing to do with the recognition of our true nature. They are the signs that sometimes accompany that. If the body-mind has been held contracted or held in this tense, contracted form, then when there is this release of tension, that there is a release of energy in the body and the mind, and sometimes that can be expressed in the body as shaking or laughing or crying. In the mind it's sometimes experienced as expanded states of mind. But these are the after effects in the body and the mind of this transparent recognition. There is nothing extraordinary about consciousness recognizing itself. Awareness's knowing of its own being it is awareness's most simple, ordinary, obvious, familiar, intimate experience. In fact, it's not an experience. All the signs in the body-mind are experiences. In the recognition of our true nature, no new knowledge comes to us. It's not about any new or extraordinary knowledge. It's the removal of ignorance, not the gaining of some new knowledge. Let me give you an example. Imagine there's an actor called John Smith, and he's playing the part of King Lear. So King Lear is something that is added to John Smith. It's a costume and a series of thoughts and feelings, activities. So these are all added on top of on top of John Smith. King Lear is added to John Smith. But the identity of King Lear is always John Smith. That there is no real character called King Lear. The real character, the real self of King Lear is John Smith. So King Lear is added to John Smith. King Lear is a limitation that is added to John Smith, that makes him think, feel, act, perceive and relate in a way that is not inherent to John Smith. These new thoughts and feelings are added to John Smith, and they are called King Lear. So King Lear is miserable. So John Smith is a very good actor. He plays the part of King Lear so fully that he completely embodies King Lear. He forgets that he is John Smith. He thinks that King Lear's life is his real life, and so he suffers because of this. And even when the play ends, he is so completely identified with King Lear that he continues believing and feeling that he is King Lear, and he walks around the streets for the next few days believing and feeling that he is King Lear, and he is miserable because of that. And then one day he's sitting on a bench and he meets a friend, and he tells his friend all his problems, the reasons for his misery. And his friend says to him, no, you're not miserable for any of those reasons. You're miserable because you have forgotten your true nature. You have forgotten who you are. That is the cause of your misery. And King Lear argues with his friend for a minute and says, no, it's obvious I'm miserable for all these reasons, and it's obvious that I know perfectly well what I am. I see this body and these thoughts and these feelings. And his friend says to him, no, but ask yourself, who are you really? You're not your thoughts. You are the one that is aware of your thoughts. Ask yourself, what is it that is aware of your thoughts? And King Lear, for the first time in his life, asks himself, what is it that is aware of my thoughts? And in doing so, King Lear begins to trace his way back to who he essentially is. And then he encounters a layer of feelings, and his friend tells him, no, you're not your feelings, you are aware of your feelings. King Lear goes back, and his friend keeps saying to him, but what are you essentially? What cannot be removed from you? Your thoughts are always coming and going, your feelings are always coming and going, these clothes you're wearing are coming and going, but what is it that never comes and goes in your experience? And something about this question has the power to draw King Lear's mind deeper and deeper and deeper, back and back and back to his essential being. And at some moment there is this recognition, oh, I am John Smith. I was never King Lear. Now, what knowledge is added to John Smith when he recognizes who he is? Does any new extraordinary knowledge become available to him? No. The most simple, obvious knowledge, which he has in fact always known, simply shines because it is no longer veiled or obscured by King Lear's beliefs and feelings. Now, we could say that this process of King Lear tracing back his mind to its essential, irreducible source was something that King Lear did. But who is King Lear? King Lear didn't do anything because there is no self called King Lear. There was never a character called King Lear. King Lear was an imaginary limitation, self-assumed by John Smith. That's why Balayani said, I knew my Lord through my Lord. There is never a real separate self that leaves awareness and then returns to awareness. There is just awareness. The only character there is John Smith. The only self there is awareness, which colors itself in the form of thinking and feeling, and seems to appear as something other than itself. This other than itself is the separate self, which from its own point of view is a real separate self. But when the separate self recognizes its true nature, the separate self realizes there was never a separate self. In other words, the separate self never leaves home, never returns home. When John Smith recognizes, I am John Smith, it is not an extraordinary experience. It's true that when he recognizes this, John Smith bursts out laughing. And he turns round and he hugs his friend, and that for 5 or 10 minutes he is in a state of elation, because he remembers that he's just this regular guy, John Smith, and he has a nice family at home, and he's perfectly happy and contented in his life. So for 10 minutes he's in a completely elated state. But the day after, when John Smith's friend bumps into him, he's just a regular guy walking down the street. He's not in an elated state. There's nothing special about being John Smith. So yes, for the first 10 minutes, there can be this elated, expanded experience in the body and the mind. But that has nothing to do with recognizing our true nature. It is just John Smith's elation for 10 minutes, realizing that he's not King Lear. But the actual recognition itself, oh yes, of course, I'm John Smith. Nothing new is added to him. And then when he looks back at his life as King Lear, he realizes, I, John Smith, was actually always shining in the midst of King Lear's life. So the recognition of our true nature is just, oh yes, of course, I'm John Smith. It's something so intimate is remembered, so well known, so something so obvious that was overlooked. It's not John Smith's recognition of himself is not an extraordinary experience. Being John Smith is a continuous experience. Being awareness, recognizing the nature of awareness is not an experience. It is the awareness that runs through all experience.
So this expectation should be dropped away, or
so the
expectation for something special?
Well, yes, but the expectation for something special can only come to an end as a result of understanding. Don't discipline them. Don't try to get rid of them. You can't try to get rid of them But if you understand what's been said, then the expectations will automatically fall away. As long as we are expecting enlightenment in the future, it means that we are expecting an event. A particular event in the body or the mind. That is, enlightenment is not an event. It's not an objective experience. It's not something that happens. So if that becomes clear to you, the expectation will just fall away naturally as a result of understanding.